Now it's time for Movie Friends with your hosts Michelle and Seth. We're talking film without pretension. We're finding cats that are unexpected. We'll watch a movie, film, or schmovie, and we want you to join our journey. So subscribe and share this podcast, or this might just be the last of the Movie Friends. We're movie friends. We want to be your movie friends.
Welcome to Movie Friends. I'm here with my friend Michelle Rubenstein, who has not turned her back on love.
And hey, I'm here with my friend Seth Vargas, who is very attached to his snakeskin jacket.
I really wish that I had one to wear.
It's the leather sound. Just
Oof.
I can't make a leather sound. Can you make one? It's like
Well, it's creaky.
creak.
It's
Yeah.
like,
That was an awful me trying to emulate that sound.
There's one scene in particular when Nick Cage and Bobby Peru are at the bar,
Yep.
and it is just loud.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
very focused on that.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you, Seth? You are dressed for summer. No beanie tonight.
You know what? I think tomorrow is like the first official day of spring,
Yeah, I think so.
and it's like nice and warm out. Today was the first day that I could have worn shorts realistically, and I'm feeling it. Like, I definitely suffer from seasonal depression
Yeah, I hear you.
because I'm feeling pretty good right now.
You have a pep in your step. You feel the hope of the sun.
That's right. That's right. What's going on with you?
It's my birthday week.
When this comes out, your birthday will have passed. So how was it?
Past Michelle had a great time. Yeah,
You're 38 now?
I believe so.
Or 37? I forget.
I mean, right now I'm 37.
Oh,
But when you hear this, I'll be 38. If I'm still around,
oh my God.
maybe I'll be a ghost.
Okay. Well, hey, did we get any new patrons this week?
We did, Krista.
Oh
Welcome
my
to the
gosh.
Patreon. So exciting.
Not to dox Krista, but it's your boy Krista.
It's your boy, Krista. Wow.
Krista, thank you so much for signing up. Holy
Thank
cow.
you.
Maybe that's another reason why I have a pep in my step.
Because we got a new patron or because Krista signed up?
Both.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
Hey, Krista signed up and got access to all of our additional episodes and our patron-only Discord, voting rights on upcoming films and monthly themes, a bunch of other stuff too. Holy moly. And, you can be just like Krista. Not as cool,
Sorry.
but on your way to being that cool. Patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast.
Don't you think Krista is just the sunglasses wearing emoji?
The cool guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's Krista.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got an email.
Email.
Subject line is Raising Arizona. Does it not feel like years ago?
Years ago.
Mm-hmm. Michelle had requested that people submit their hobbies.
I did.
And so this person says, I like to play pool.
Really?
You ever play pool?
I mean, I have played pool. I'm not good at it.
Okay.
What about you?
I used to run a youth center, and so I got paid to play
Oh, yeah.
pool.
We've talked about this somewhere.
Yeah. Pool and ping pong.
The 2 Ps.
Just 6 hours a night. Beating kids at pool and ping pong.
I don't know if I ever told you this. In high school, I was in a short for this kid's brother's 5-town college project, and we filmed at a pool hall in Selden.
Nice.
And every time I pass it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I filmed a movie
I think I know that pool hall in Selden.
Yeah.
There's not many.
In that movie. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle, the non-movie person.
I like being in them and making them.
Who just whips out movie stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the email continues. Has there ever been an actor with the range of Cage? And I don't know that we can answer that definitively, but that's what we're trying to discuss this month. And he's got it.
He's got it, for sure.
The Hawaiian shirt choice was key. And we had mentioned how that was like one of the only things that the Coen brothers let Nick Cage bring to the character. I think because they're brothers who work together, they have already worked out the beats in the script, so there's no need to change it. Holly Hunter was one of my earliest celebrity crushes. P.S. Good old Roger swung and missed on that review.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a good Roger Ebert review coming up on this one, folks. PSS, this movie is actually pretty divisive. PSSS, I've only walked out of one movie, and that was The Stepford Wives.
Oh, I saw that in theaters.
Did you?
I did. It was terrible.
That email was from Ben, and he is referring to the Stepford Wives remake.
With Nicole Kidman?
Nicole Kidman.
That's the one I saw in theaters.
I watched that maybe last year. I didn't think it was terrible.
I just wanted more.
And hey, we want more. Emails. So send us one. moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, Ben. So before we get into our discussion on Wild at Heart, we guess what each other are going to rate the film. And if we get it right, we add a pickle to our pickle tally. Currently, I'm in the lead, but we're all winners when pickles are being passed, you know?
That's true, yeah. I mean, there's enough pickles to go around.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Now, you and I have chatted briefly a little bit. We've touched base. This was a patron-voted film. And I think for some reason, when that's the case, you and I don't feel as secretive in talking about it because we're like, we didn't pick this.
That's so true.
So
Until
I
you
don't.
said it, I didn't realize that, but that's 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not like we're hiding it from each other. It's like we're talking about them behind their backs. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure with this one.
Yeah, I have
Also,
no idea.
Last March, we did a Lynch film.
We did.
Which was also patron voted. And that's because I would never make you watch one of these movies, but our patrons would. So thank you.
Wow. It's a little conspiracy here.
Okay. I'm locked in.
I'm also locked in.
I feel like this rating combo is maybe a unique one. I'm not sure.
If you get it, you've been doing really well. I feel like you finally understand the way my brain works.
We'll see.
Well,
we'll see.
I think you've known for a while, but anyway.
So we're talking about Wild at Heart from 1990. This is directed by David Lynch, written by David Lynch, based on the novel of the same name by Barry Gifford. Cinematography by Frederick Elms. Composed by Angelo Badalamenti. Edited by Duane Dunham. Costume design by Amy Stofsky. Starring Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern, Diane Ladd, Willem Dafoe, J.E. Freeman, Harry Dean Stanton, and Isabella Rossellini. Michelle, why don't you tune our radio and find a summary for us?
You got it. Lula and Sailor are two crazy kids on the run from the law, a hitman and one intense mother. They believe in three things: loud music, fast cars, and each other. As they journey down the yellow brick road, they encounter strange characters, trouble, and their own secretive pasts. In the end, they will go over the rainbow and learn what it means to truly be wild at heart.
Very nice.
Very nice, Seth. I like the
that
ending
2
there.
minutes before
Amazing. I would love to have your brain.
I don't say that to brag. I say that because I had like 4 different summaries for this one, and just each one I was like, no, let's go for something a little more poetic for this movie, because this movie, I think, is a little hard to grasp.
Did you read the book?
I did not read the book. Did you?
No.
Okay. So I watched this many years ago, probably at this point, like 15 years ago, for the first time. Watched it with my wife. We were going through our book of cult films. We would rent movies from Netflix. They would get mailed to our house.
Yep.
And it was a great time. It was a great time of just cinematic discovery. We watched all kinds of stuff like Salo and Lynch films and weird stuff. And while I really liked David Lynch, I didn't really like this movie when I saw it. I kind of was just like, what was that?
Yeah.
And then just kind of put a pin in it and moved on. And I haven't revisited it until doing this episode. So I'm curious for you, I know that you've seen a few Lynch projects.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find Wild at Heart?
I have been struggling to pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
how to articulate my thoughts, what isn't working for me with this movie. And I read the synopsis of this movie, and like that's why I was asking if you read the book. And when I read the synopsis of the story, like a detailed synopsis,
Mm-hmm.
not including the artistic flair added to it, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is a really interesting story. But for me, the movie version feels drawn
Mm-hmm.
out, it feels chaotic. Visually, it does not match with what
Mm-hmm.
I want to see from this story. And like, honestly, if I'm in the mood for a love story, if I'm in the mood for a crime drama, if I'm in the mood for something that's going to grip me, this would not be my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th choice.
Right.
And I say that with all due respect.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
One of the things that's very important to me in a movie is the story. I'm a story guy.
Mhm.
I don't care if you shoot your movie on video. I don't care if it's in 4K or 1080p or whatever all of those things mean. I don't really care about music that much either. I've noticed I'm not really a score person.
Right.
There's some scores where it's like, my God, this is so good. But I care about the story. And you can call me a dum-dum, but the first time I watched it, and even the first time I watched it for this, I was like, who are these people?
Yeah.
What's going on? And I felt like it was really drawn out because I couldn't see all of the connecting dots. And again, call me a dum-dum. Maybe this is much easier for people to grasp on their first time. I was like, are we doing like side quest stories? Does everyone? Oh, we're back to Sailor and Lula now. But now we're over here. And I didn't see how it all related to the main story. So my second time rewatching it, I wrote down a script outline as I watched. So every time the scene would change, I would write in my notes, scene, put down where we were, who we are, and then I would describe what people were saying and talking about as they were going. And I will say, after doing that, I like this movie way, way more.
As someone who's reaching for a movie, this is not a preferred way to view something. If you're
No.
studying Lynch,
Mm-hmm.
or you're looking for a project like that, or maybe this is for a film club, sure. But as your normie
Mm-hmm.
viewer, i.e., me, and honestly, I didn't have a problem with following the story. To
Mm-hmm.
me, it's pretty simple. You have these two
It is very
people
simple, yeah.
they're in love. They have obstacles thrown at them. There's just a lot of weird things thrown into it, but when you break it down, it's just a love story.
It's just a love story, and it's a very, very simple Romeo and Juliet or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of jealous of people who watch this for the first time and they're like, that was great.
Yeah.
To me, like Lynch is so good at horrific images.
Yes.
And the horrific images do not always have to include violence or gore or whatever. And we get that in this movie. He can just show you something that's just so disturbing and upsetting and odd. I love feeling bad. I love when movies make me feel bad. But Wild at Heart makes me feel like confused. And again, I will say, after giving this movie the last few days of my life, I am in a better place with it.
Do you think it's a better place or you just respect the art form?
It's a better place. I truly did not know what was going on with Mr. Reindeer or even the silver dollar stuff. I just wasn't grasping
Yeah.
how that all connected to who and what, and why is it that when Sailor and Lula pull up to the motel, the music goes, and
Right.
you're
I
like,
mean,
wait,
and I just took that as we're just making choices here.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's because we were shown that earlier when Mr. Reindeer calls the two different, he
Right.
puts out the two different hits and sends out the silver dollars. We briefly see that he's calling the hotel in Big Tuna.
Right.
So Lynch passed away this January,
Yeah.
and I've spent a lot of time thinking about him and revisiting some work and stuff. And something I love about him is that, he started out as a visual artist, not a filmmaker. And he discovered film in his journey of making visual art, and he fell in love with it. He was like, oh my gosh, I can make moving images and moving paintings and moving sculptures. And there's something about his work that I think never left that gallery mindset of like, I'm going to put something on display and I'm not going to put a little thing next to it that tells you what it is. You can stand there and look at it. And the longer you look at it, it might evolve into something else in your mind. And it might mean one thing to you and one thing to another person. But each time you revisit it, maybe you'll see something new,
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I like that he kind of committed to being an artist despite having to sell tickets to see a movie.
No, I do like that too. And I do like art that's interactive and makes you think. And that's why
Yes.
I think this movie would be good for a film club. If you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a group of people talk about it, even if it was watched in school, like if I watched this back when I was in college and we took time to dissect scenes and really talked about it, I think this film would be really good for that.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Like you said, is this a movie that I'm going to reach for? That I'm going to be like, oh, Wild at Heart? No, absolutely not. But I think that it has a lot to say. And yeah, we're going to talk about what it has to say. Some things, hopefully. One last thing on Lynch. In terms of his feature-length films, it's a pretty accessible body of work in that there's a small handful of feature-length films. So you can watch all of his work in a month if you really wanted to. But then there's all of this other stuff. He never stopped painting. He never stopped sculpting. I just found out that he wrote a comic strip for 9 years that appeared in like a major LA newspaper for 9 years.
Wow.
That he would have his assistant hand deliver the new one in an envelope each week.
Wow.
It's called like The Angriest Dog in the World or something like that. And it's like not fully available online. Like you can't just go on and read like all of the entries that he wrote.
And it's not
They
available in a book, like a
made a
compilation.
book, but they only made like 500 copies,
Oh, wow.
and it only had like a select number of them.
Hmm.
So my point is, there's a lot to this dude,
Yeah.
and he made music, like he made albums.
He's a creative.
Very, very, very creative, and pretty committed to. Here you go, figure it out. How does it make you feel? And again, this makes me feel icky. This movie, like it's funny, but it's not funny enough.
Right.
And it's a thriller, but it's not really thrilling enough.
That's right.
Yes.
But you know what it is enough?
Yeah.
Annoying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I didn't like anybody. That was another thing. Like I could sit through a movie if it's drawn out, if it's the story is kind of not working for me, but usually like there's a character like I did not like anybody.
You didn't like Lula?
No, she annoyed me. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I love Laura Dern, but her hand and her hair drove me nuts. I didn't enjoy her. The only thing I enjoyed was Marietta's nails. That's it.
Wowie. Wow. Keep changing color.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love her manicure. I love the color. The color pink in this film. Obsessed with that shade. Oh, also, Isabella Rossellini's character's named Perdita. Love that name too. But besides
Good
that,
name.
that's it.
I'm curious. You said that you're annoyed by Laura Dern's hair?
No, her hand in her hair
Her hand in. You don't like the digging in?
No, it drove me crazy.
Why?
It just irked me. Everything she did annoyed me. Everything Sailor did annoyed me. Everybody annoyed me. And so I really just didn't like anybody
Right.
from very early on, which is hard to sit through a 2-hour movie when you don't really like anybody.
I agree. Again, I love feeling bad. I love when a movie makes me feel bad. So
Yeah, me, I'm like, how we view things very differently as everybody, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
me, I'm like, my time is limited. I would like to enjoy what I view, what I read, what I consume.
Sure. There's a lot to talk about in this movie,
Yeah.
and our time is limited.
Yes.
So while I would love to discuss all of the things that I have found, and I don't think we're going to be able to get there. We are talking about Nicolas Cage this month. Nicolas Cage plays Sailor Ripley. How did you feel about him in this movie?
This character doesn't feel that different from his in Raising Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about Nicolas Cage's range,
Mm-hmm.
we started with Pig.
Right.
I'm talking about on Movie Friends, right?
Yeah.
Which, wow. What a Cage performance that. Then we went to Vampire's Kiss. Then we did Raising Arizona, and then It Could Happen to You. That, to me, good range, right? This movie, with his performance, and him singing, very impressive. Besides that, this doesn't feel any different than a character in Raising Arizona. Like, this doesn't stick out to me as like, wow, look at the acting in this film.
Yeah.
And I'm really, I promise you, I'm not just being a negative Nancy, even if it sounds like it. I promise I'm not.
No, I don't think so. There are certain things, if someone watched like The Matrix,
Mhm.
right? They're like, I hated everybody. I'd be like, that's weird, because this is like a fun crowd pleaser blockbuster. This is not that at all. This movie is showing you hell. And Lynch himself, I watched a short on the making of this movie, and he outright says like they are in a type of hell, and there are things in the movie that are meant to upset you and like twist the knife and agitate you, and it accomplishes that 100%. So I don't think like this like so yeah, this isn't like you coming in and being like, I hated Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I think anybody who can kind of set aside their love for something and look at it objectively would have to admit, like, this is not an easy or fun watch.
Yeah.
I think that there's fun parts, but like I said, it is funny.
Yeah.
It's just not a funny movie.
Correct.
There's action, but it's not an action movie.
Right.
This is an experimental art movie. He takes a novel that's very straightforward and inserts as much like Wizard of Oz language and images into it, which the book had none of that.
Okay,
at all.
that was a question of mine. And I assumed that was Lynch's doing of adding the Wizard of Oz and the Elvis to it, or did that Elvis element exist in the book?
Cage brought the Elvis to it.
Interesting.
Lynch talked about how for Cage, Elvis was the starting point and the access to that character. And for Dern, it was bubblegum.
Okay. All right.
I agree with you. And what I never realized until I watched it, 3 times this week was Cage has a few moments in this of big body movements and loud yelling. But Sailor, the character, unless provoked, is actually pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And tame, unless he's dancing or singing a song or killing someone, For the most part, he's just like, hey, baby, I like you. Hey, let's have sex. Hey, I'm going to go change the oil on the car. Hey. So I agree with you. Like in terms of this month and like experiencing his range, it's kind of like High from Raising Arizona, but just like brought down a few steps, but then also extremely violent. Because High never used real bullets.
Right.
And odd connection to this one, turns out, Sailor also didn't have real bullets, and he was wearing a panty on his head.
Yes. I wrote that down. I was like, wow. I'm always just making connections.
When him and Bobby Peru are walking in and he's got the stocking on his head and the gun up, I was like, wait. I just saw this, didn't I?
You know, I meant to bring this up during our Raising Arizona episode, but when you put a stocking over your head,
Mm-hmm.
what is that doing? You can see exactly what the person looks like.
It's not a good disguise.
No.
Yeah, I guess it would make them hard to identify later. And it's like you need a mask, but something you can see through. I don't know. Nobody wears stockings anymore.
Right.
And I'm not trying to sound like, drunk uncle on Saturday Night Live, but like nobody wears stockings. And one of my notes for this movie was fantastic use of stockings in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Laura Dern is wearing a few different types of stockings. Perdita has some awesome stockings. And then obviously we get the stockings on their head. But what happened? What happened to stockings?
I mean, there's stockings and there's tights.
There's tights, yeah.
I know there is a difference, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but I actually just wore a pair a couple of weeks ago to a funeral. So I don't reach for them, but I do have a pair. Maybe it's tights? Are stockings thicker? Hey, send us an email.
I think that tights are thicker and
Oh, are
usually
they?
not see-through. Where stockings, it's like pantyhose.
Yeah, right.
Why did women wear pantyhose? Why did your panty need a hose?
Oh. I also just hate that P word.
Oh, me too.
Oh.
No, me too. That's underwear.
It's undies.
Well, undies.
I'm never
maybe.
shopping for panties. I'll get myself some undies.
I will say pantyhose though, because that's a different item. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Remember your mom would just buy it in the grocery store in an egg shape?
In an egg.
Yeah.
There was the egg.
I know. I always wanted the egg when I was a kid.
Yes, I used to play with the egg.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, hey, Mom, put on them pantyhose. Give me the egg.
Toss the egg over here.
Mm-hmm. But I remember growing up, like, women wore them every day.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know what they did. What did the pantyhose do? Anyway, we gotta move on.
It does provide a covering.
Of what? It's like you said, like you put it over your face. You can still see it.
No.
So like I can't look at a female leg unless it's covered by
definitely
a 1/100th of an inch sheer.
Yeah, and also like if you have control top, it just makes everything smoother under a dress or skirt.
Control top?
Yeah, like the top can be slimming.
Like so Spanx?
Yes, but okay. Some
before Spanx. Why were they called Spanx?
Yeah, that
doesn't make any sense.
There is. I used to know the reason, the explanation for that.
Anyway, this has been Wild at Heart.
Thanks so much for joining us.
I do like Cage's jacket.
Yeah.
Whatever he says, this is my snakeskin jacket. It's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom. I believe is what he says, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he says that to Laura Dern at one point. He's like, have I ever told you that? She's like, yeah, like 10,000 times.
It's like his mantra.
Yeah. So there's a split that happens in the movie. You could say it happens when they come across the accident with the girl who dies in front of them. But I also think it's when Sailor finds out that Lula is pregnant. She hands him the note. And just kind of everything changes. Like everything before that, they're like crazy about each other. And then after that, he barely like wants to touch her.
Yeah.
He gives her like a peck when he enters the room instead of like whipping off his jacket and jumping in the bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's processing that information.
And then, they're down to $40. So he's got to go in on a bad deal. Also another weird connection to Raising Arizona that they're going to rob a seed bank.
I know. What the heckles? I wrote that down too. I was like, what is happening? A seed bank again?
Lynch saw Raising Arizona and he's like, gee whiz, that Nicolas Cage sure is great. I got to put him in my next film. Let me sit down to write the script.
Seed bank, great idea.
So Sailor will not sing Love Me Tender unless it's to his wife.
That's his line. Yeah.
So you were impressed with Cage's singing?
I think it was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to find out that it was him actually singing.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was,
He sounded good.
yeah, it was decent.
Yeah. I mean, am I buying
He
an
would go
album?
on,
But no.
oh, I would buy a Nicolas Cage album. 100%.
If it was originals.
Cage Does the King?
Oh, well, actually, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay,
would
I'd
go
buy
on
it.
to marry, in real life, Lisa Marie Presley.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Their marriage lasted 107 days.
Short-lived.
Laura Dern, as Lula, she annoyed you.
Yeah, so how did you feel about her?
Well, I like the hair thing, you know?
Yeah, I can, if it was once, it's
Uh-huh.
all the time. And again, that's a character choice.
Yeah.
I was just like, get your hand out of your hair. It is annoying me so much.
What I like about Lula, Lynch described the two characters as equals.
Yeah.
They're both equally as interested in each other as the other one is. They're both driving the car. They're both making decisions. They're both on the run. It's not just that Sailor is like, oh, I'm going to, kidnap this young woman and take her. Like, she wants to go. She sees her mother as the Wicked Witch, and she has this sense of her life before her father died and how awful it was. And there's a lot of discussion about whether or not this film is like really, really misogynistic, especially in its depiction of Lula. I don't get that. I wouldn't go that far, but she's definitely a young lady, and she's not necessarily making the best choices. And so we can look at her and be like, come on, Lula, do better. But Sailor's right there along with her, making the same choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to me, they're just young and in love.
Yeah. So I think depending on whether or not you might have some hidden misogyny within yourself, which is okay to admit.
Sure.
If you look at her and say, look at how horrible she's being depicted. It's like, well, what about how Sailor's being depicted?
Right.
They're doing the same thing. Before you started watching it, I did say one thing to you. I said, look out for the Wizard of Oz stuff.
And what did I say to you?
I can't remember.
I said, I'm going to give you some pre-watch thoughts right now.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. I was like, yes, the return of pre-watch thoughts.
And for whatever reason, I thought this movie had to do with horses.
Yep.
And Cage was a cowboy.
Yes. Now, I actually found out why you might think that. There was a TV show about an animal sanctuary called Wild at Heart that might still be on the air.
That's so crazy. I must have seen that somewhere, and that, planted a seed in my brain because I had no idea that existed.
No, not about horses. There is a little horse that Lula talks to, though, in the hotel. There's like a horse clock or something.
I don't remember that.
It's very brief.
Okay.
Very brief.
Okay.
Yeah. She only talks to it once.
But yeah, the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Well, short fuse. We're referencing it
constantly.
The colors shown of the rainbow during the sex scenes.
Yes. I was wondering if you...
I did. Yeah. Yes, I picked up on that. Glinda at the end. Marietta with the red lipstick on her face. I was like, okay, we're the Wicked Witch. I'm like, but why? Just because?
Lynch, right. Just because Lynch loves Oz. There's actually a documentary called Lynch/Oz. It's not so much a documentary as like a series of video essays by film critics and journalists and filmmakers. Karen Kusama does one. David Lowery does one that was really cool, actually. They're just pulling out all of the Wizard of Oz references throughout like all of Lynch's movies. This one is probably the one that's most full of them. Someone brings out that someone asked him about the Wizard of Oz imagery in Mulholland Drive. And he responds, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the Wizard of Oz.
Wow. And so, like, when I hear this, I like that because
Yeah.
I keep thinking this is not the same at all. So I just want to preface before what I'm about to say. But I think about when we did our last live show
Mm-hmm.
and we did stuff that didn't make sense to anybody else.
Right.
And we were like, we want to make you feel things, uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from a creative standpoint, I really am into that idea of like just throwing the Wizard of Oz themes into your bodies of work because you love it so much. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. Take it or leave it. So,
Right.
like, I respect that. That's it. That I thought I had more, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off. And what's important for me to remember, because I'm someone who's always looking for connections and my brain is making connections, is that this isn't supposed to be like a one-for-one like remake, or it's not, all the references don't like line up. So you can't stop and be like, well, who's the Tin Man in the movie?
Right. Yeah.
And okay, so if she's Dorothy, which that's like the clearest kind of, one for one, is she's Dorothy. She's got the red shoes. She's trying to go home. Her mother is the Wicked Witch. Okay. I had a lightning bolt moment where I was like, oh, Sailor is Toto. Because the Wicked Witch is after Dorothy and Toto. She wants both of them, right? So I was like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense now. But he's not trying to remake The Wizard of Oz as a modern crime romance movie. He's just kind of inserting elements into it. And I think that it's almost like little lighthouses in the ocean that we can kind of like grab onto when someone says like over the rainbow. We know what that means. We know that that's referring to like a longing for some place that's better than where you are, and Toto and the Yellow Brick Road. I don't know that there's massive intentionality and symbolism behind everything, because I also think that Lynch knows what's cool and what looks good and what's cool to do, and he's also interested in putting things like that in where we want everything to make sense and tie together. It's just like, yeah, and then there will be 3 topless women who come out in the middle of the motel parking lot and just start dancing.
Right.
It's not necessarily supposed to mean something.
It's just a stylistic choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Diane Ladd, Laura Dern's real mom,
Yeah.
IRL,
It's pretty cool.
as Marietta. Wowie, wow. Nominated for an Oscar for this role.
Wow.
Yes.
You go, girl.
What you said you liked her nails.
I did. I really, I was very fixated on every scene she was in because I was very focused on her nails. So she had a great manicure. But so her vendetta is because Sailor turned her down and wouldn't sleep with her. I mean, it's added. I also think it's like her daughter going against and leaving the house, but
yeah.
Sailor does turn down her advance.
Yes. Well, I think it's a little more than that, because I think the advance is because of something else. Like I tried to make like a timeline of events, and like you have to go back to Lula is 13 and she's raped by Uncle Poochie.
Yeah.
Who is a business associate of her dad. Uncle Poochie introduces them to Santos. Santos and her mom have an affair. Santos and Perdita, no, not Perdita. Yeah, Santos and Perdita kill Lula's dad, Clyde, I believe his name was.
And then Sailor drove for Santos.
Sailor at that time was driving for Santos.
Right.
And he's there the night of the fire. And everyone believes that Sailor saw who did it and what happened. And he keeps claiming, I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And I don't believe Sailor. Sailor never tells Lula what happened with her mom.
The advance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would he? That's an
Because
uncomfortable thing.
he's going to prison for it. I mean, you got to explain, be like, hey, I did and this is why your mom's out to get me. Like, Sailor doesn't explain, like, finally later on in the movie, he's like, hey, I got to tell you something, and it has to do with why we're having all these troubles. And, I used to work for a man and blah, blah, blah. But Lula's very open with Sailor. Early on in their journey, she talks about how her mom said, oh, when you turn 15, you're going to start thinking about sex. And Sailor's one who's like, whoa, well, I thought you told me, that this happened when you were 13. So she's been very open with him about her past. It's just that she doesn't have all the information.
Right.
Sailor has all the information and just clams up about it.
Mm.
And it's nuts because, like, if he told Lula the truth about her mom, I mean, I guess she already ran away from her, so maybe he thinks it's just adding trouble, where it doesn't need to be. But I think when she comes on to him in the bathroom, which is terrifying. I don't know how you felt about that scene, but
Uncomfortable.
Very scary. I think she's doing it to try to get Sailor onto her side and to shut him up, basically.
And control the narrative fully.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when he just is like, absolutely not, she's like, fine, then I'll have you killed.
Right.
When that doesn't work, she waits until he gets out of prison, and then she's like, we need to kill this guy. Because now not only does he know that, I was in with Santos and, probably behind the death of my husband and Lula's dad, but now he knows that I tried to come on to him and then I tried to have him killed. And like everything that she does that Sailor kind of wiggles through just compounds, how bad she is.
Like talking about the story, it's interesting.
Yeah. It's a good little thriller.
Yeah. It's just watching it.
How did you feel when she got full red?
Yeah. I was like, well, here we go. This is like, the witch being green.
Here we go.
Here we go. Of course we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Diane Ladd said about her performance as Marietta. She approached Lynch about wanting to present Marietta as different versions of like Hollywood starlets.
Mm.
So she references different scenes and she says, this is when I was doing like a Kathleen Turner thing. This is when I was doing Dolly Parton. This is when I was doing Carol Lombard. And she brought all of that into the movie, which I think is pretty interesting.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And that he let her like really, really, really run with that. It sounded like from the documentary on this that I watched, it sounded like he really let all of the characters bring something to it. Because, he's adapting a book.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't something that he came up with. And this book was published in 1989. Wild at Heart comes out in 1990. He turned around the script for this in 6 weeks.
Wow.
So I don't think he was incredibly precious about any of it.
Right.
It was like, hey, yeah, let's do some stuff,
So he came across this book, read it, and was like, oh my God, I'm so inspired. I need to visually create this.
Yeah. So do you remember the cowboy from Mulholland Drive?
It's so fuzzy, but yes.
When the director goes all the way up to the top and he meets this cowboy who's like,
yes.
This is the girl in the picture. And then he's like, if you do good, you'll see me 2 more times. If you do bad, I can't remember the exact order, but anyway, that guy's a producer. And he approaches Lynch and he's like, I want to direct this movie, read this book, and help me do the script. And Lynch said to him, well, what if I want to direct it? And he's like, if you want to, you can, but let's make this movie. Lynch reads it and he's like, yes, I want to make this movie. So it's all like real fast. And it's funny because Lynch very famously adapts Dune, Frank Herbert's novel. He didn't have creative control and final cut. And he was like, I will never do this again. Like, I'm never adapting another work. I'm going to do stuff that's me.
Mm.
But then he gets creative control on Wild at Heart. He's like, sure, I'll do it.
As long as he has creative control, he's game.
Yep. And he finished the movie very differently from the book. It's a totally different ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Diane Ladd is just so turned up. I don't think it's a bad. I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, because I know you said that like everyone was kind of annoying to you. I don't think that these are bad performances.
No, the acting's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel anyway. That's not what I meant by everybody annoying me.
Right. But yeah, she's just so turned up that I'm like, I'm just trying to process the facts. Like the facts of what anyone is saying in any moment didn't register with me because I'm just like being overwhelmed by the height of their performances.
Yeah. And also, I watch everything with captions.
Yeah.
And captions were not available with this.
No. Wild at Heart is not available pretty much anywhere. It is on the Internet Archive. And so that's how you and I watched it. And yeah, no captions.
So if you had the DVD, you probably could put captions on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no captions. No, that was very difficult for me and how I process information.
Yep.
I would have loved to have read the dialogue along with watching it.
Yeah, and I think that's also what kind of spurred me to like write out the story as I went. And then I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Santos called Mr. Reindeer, and Mr. Reindeer told him, put $2 silver in my mail slot. And then he takes those and he sends them out to 2 different hitmen, one being Perdita and one being Juana and Reggie. And okay, and I will say this, and now if you're listening to this, you are going to like think that I just don't process movies correctly, but I'm willing to, be open.
This is a humble. Safe space.
Yeah, I'm willing to say this. I had no idea that Juana and Perdita were 2 different people. And I know the actresses who play both of them because of the blonde wig.
They look the same. That's not your fault. And the eyebrows.
Yes. And when we're in with Juana, she's like screaming at the camera and like so crazy. So that was a big piece of the puzzle that I was missing.
But that's got to be done on purpose. Let's make these 2 characters look exactly the same.
Right.
Let's confuse you.
Now, on Juana and Reggie and that whole scene, Harry Dean Stanton, one of the greats, just one of the greatest of all time, maybe the only nice person in this movie. He is playing Johnny, who I believe is a detective that is having a relationship with Marietta. And she says, you need to help me. You need to find them. He's either a PI or a detective.
Yeah, I think he's a PI.
But he's not on the wrong side of the law, basically. Because she says, you need to help me or else I'm going to hire a hitman. And he's like, no. We'll do this the right way. I'll track them. Love Harry Dean Stanton. Love him so much. Love seeing him in anything and everything. He's just such a delight and feels like a real human, like as you're watching him. His death scene originally was much different. There was much more to Juana's performance and Reggie in that scene. When they tested it in front of a test audience, now this is from Lynch, and I believe either the cinematographer, someone involved with the film, they said 200 people walked out because it was so graphic and upsetting.
Wow.
They did another test screening and like 150 people walked out. And so Lynch was like, okay, maybe we need to. He's like, in that moment, I lost them. So it was apparently like really, really bad and upsetting and disturbing. So, we have that we're missing. But Bobby Peru does not come into this movie until an hour and 18 minutes into it.
It almost feels like at this point we're abandoning the whole mother storyline.
Yes.
This is how I
This
felt.
is how I felt watching
Yes.
this. That I'm like, who are these people?
Right. And I'm like, oh, is Bobby Peru part of the Santos, Marietta, Johnny of it all?
He is.
Right.
is.
Right. But at this
Yes.
point, it's been a little while since we've seen them. And so, yeah.
And he has the silver dollar. He has
Right.
one of the silver
Right.
dollars.
Right.
So yeah, if you're not following all those things, it does feel like totally random. But then everything is actually like on this one track of this very simple story.
Yeah.
This dude is only in the movie for like 20 minutes.
He makes an impact.
Yes. So Willem Dafoe, you had texted me something about Willem Dafoe.
I did.
A podcast idea. Do you want to describe that?
Anthony and I, in another life, would love to do a Willem Dafoe podcast called Dafoe or Defriend. And we watch Willem Dafoe movies, and the only rating we give is if he's Dafoe or Defriend. And in this movie, he's definitely Dafoe.
He's he might be the biggest Dafoe
Yes.
that I've ever seen him, and he plays some wild characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bobby Peru is something else.
Just also visually, this thin mustache.
The thin,
The
sweaty
thinnest
mustache.
How does one create that?
You can do it. Yeah, you can shave it.
Like, but does that take a lot of skill?
To do it the first time, yes.
Yeah.
But then once it's there, it's easy to just trim around it, get it shaped nicer.
Now, you have facial hair.
Yes.
And I'm sure, well, actually, I don't want to assume, but like Anthony gets compliments on his facial hair all the time.
Sure.
From other dudes.
Sure.
So
well, Anthony's got
right.
a wizard beard.
Right. I mean, it's definitely intact now.
Yes.
But do you like this thin mustache look?
If someone walked into my place of work, or if I just saw someone on the street and they had the pencil mustache, I'd be like, that is the coolest person I've ever seen. To commit to that
right,
and wear it, there's something going on there.
Remember we were really into goatees?
Oh.
Well, I don't know if we were really
were not into them. we were fixated on them.
Yes, thank you.
And the soul patch.
The soul patch. It was goatees, soul patch, and now the pencil, the pencil mustache.
Yeah.
Such a choice.
There's just no getting around having it. Like, you can't pretend you don't have it. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
when you're wearing that, you're
wearing it.
Yeah. And it's not in fashion. So it's not like, beards became super, super popular around when I was like a teenager. Most people shaved, and then it just became like, oh, actually it's kind of somewhat normal to have a beard or to not have one. But it wasn't like, hey, that guy's got a beard, Yeah. It's never been the case for the pencil thin mustache.
No. So how do you feel about Bobby Peru?
Oh, I hate him. I tweeted today, I said, I think I'm just trying to have the opposite vibes of Bobby Peru in any given situation.
I will say, though, yes, we meet him much later into the film, but at least he made me perk up a little bit.
Okay.
Because at this point, I'm so sick of everyone else.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, who is this dude?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so
he
does make you say, who is this dude?
Who is this dude?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what are we doing? And he doesn't last that long. So.
No, like I said, he's in this movie for maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah. And, I saw his name in the credits. And so I was like, where is he? And then I'm like, is another character him? And I just don't realize it. Not that you can ever mistake Willem Dafoe
right.
for himself.
The teeth are really something.
Teeth. Yeah.
Yep. So he wore special teeth that covered his teeth and his gums, and they're kind of ground down and stubby. And Dafoe said, putting on the teeth was really transformative.
I bet.
because he said, because they're covering his whole mouth, he's like, it's like hard to even close your lips over it. So you talk a certain way. He also said when he went to get tested for wardrobe, he's like, when you go to get tested for wardrobe, normally there's like an entire rack for you. He's like, I went for Bobby Peru and there was 3 pieces of clothing. He's like, and so that really limited who this guy is.
Yeah.
Like we already mentioned this episode talking about Nicolas Cage as high, how the Hawaiian shirt thing really helps understand who that person is. Bobby Peru was very, very limited in what he was. So I think the scene of the movie, and not because it's the best scene of the movie, is when he assaults Lula in the hotel room.
Mm.
How did you process that scene? What are you thinking as it's happening? Yeah.
Do you want my honest opinion?
Absolutely.
Actually, do you want my... I fast forwarded.
I believe it.
It started, and I was
Mhm.
like, I'm so over this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just fast forwarded.
Definitely on my first watch through, it was the thing that stuck out to me that I was like, oh, I don't like that.
Well,
I don't know what's going on there.
yeah, right.
Because one way that I've seen people interpret that is that Lynch frames it that Lula ends up wanting it to happen, which is extremely complicated and icky and really, really terrible. Watching it several times now, I can't speak fully for her character, but Bobby Peru is basically like he says to her, he's like, I'll rip your heart out
Mm-hmm.
unless you say this, and unless you say it this way. And so watching it again, I was like, okay, this is still really terrible and really horrifying, but I see the kind of backdoor that he worked in to where he can say like, no, it's not this horrible as you think it is. It's just a person who's caught, frozen, and trying to survive. Lula's abuse as a kid, comes up at one point when they go back to their hotel room and you see Sailor like lock the door and then he takes the stick out of the window that's meant to like, air out the room and closes it. She gets a flashback to that. And it's like she's remembering like, oh, like I am in danger. Like something is happening. In preparing for this, I always listen to different movie podcasts and I was like, I'm not interested in hearing from anyone other than a woman talk about this movie and this scene. So I was able to find several, and I saw some different opinions on it, and they weren't all like, "This is horrible and evil, and this movie shouldn't exist." One person did fast forward through it,
Yeah.
kind of like you said. So yeah, it's I think the scene that stays with you the most, at least it's the scene that has stayed with me the most. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And it's a reminder that these characters are not in a good place and that this movie isn't like made to make you feel good.
Yeah. Interesting. Mm.
And then immediately after that, we get Nick Cage in a weird Elvis Presley voice saying, "What's up, Bobby?" And it just brings you to King of the Hill.
Yes. Yes,
Did
it
you get
does.
that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're off.
And then they're off. And Bobby Peru is out to kill Sailor, but he does it in this weird roundabout way of like, I'm going to have you rob a seed store with me, give you a fake gun, and I'll kill you during the robbery so that he gets more money, I guess.
Yeah, like you're my pawn. You have to help
Mm-hmm.
me first, but I'm really here to kill you as well. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
win-win in his mind.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess. How'd you feel about him blowing his own head off?
I mean, at this point in my notes, what is happening? What is happening here? All in caps. I mean, this scene, probably because I fast forwarded through the other scene.
Yeah.
This scene is what sticks out to me.
Okay.
It's just that head being
Yeah.
blown off.
Yeah. I can't remember what Cage says, but he's like, that poor guy.
which is very much like hi.
Yeah. And
Saying
again,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
because they haven't really talked to each other, Sailor doesn't know everything that we know
Right.
about Bobby Peru. He
Right.
just thinks he's some weird guy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I want to talk about the ending quickly.
Yeah.
Sailor goes back to prison for 6 years. Lula more than likely goes back to some form of relationship with her mother and their child, Pace. Lula agrees to pick up Sailor from the train station with Pace. And again, it's like after he finds out that she's pregnant, they never really return to the wild passion that's like so prevalent in the first part of the movie, right? Thinking about this in terms of like a love story and young people, how did you feel about the sex scenes?
I'm not one who loves watching sex on TV.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
sure.
So, but I'm also not a prude either.
Did it feel like gratuitous to you? Did it feel like, what is this movie about?
No, I got like we're showing passion. These two people love each other, are horny for each other. It like when I say I'm neutral on it,
Sure.
in the way of it didn't infuriate me, but it also didn't give me anything. I also just
Yeah.
yeah.
They really gave them a hard time on this for the sex scenes and the shot of Bobby Peru getting his head blown off.
Oh, I can imagine that.
Yeah. So they were going to rate this X, I think.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, how do you
NC-17
feel
didn't
about
exist.
the sex in this?
Well, I saw one person just straight up call this film like pornographic. And I was like, no, I don't
No, I don't think so.
see that at all. Because Lula and Sailor are set up to really be like on equal footing. This is just what they want to do. Like this,
They're
they
very
don't have a
passionate
plan
for one another.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
have a plan beyond like, let's go to California and just listen to loud music. That scene where they're driving and she's listening to the news and she just like bugs out. That's how I feel.
Totally.
Like listening to the news, or to bring it back to film podcasts where I'm listening to two men knuckleheads discuss a Laura Dern assault scene, and I'm just like, turn this off. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, put something else on right now.
But also, I think it does a good representation of being young, in love, on a road trip, and you're just having lots of sex because that's what you do when you're young.
Yeah, and you want to listen to music. And
You want to go to shows and dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't take me to that place of being like, this is really gratuitous, and finding out that thing about which you referenced earlier. They had found this like new technology, I guess, which I was like, how did this not exist before? But as they were shooting, they were able to like put colors over the shots. And so if you watch and pay attention, you'll see all the different colors of the rainbow throughout it. And so it's not just, hey, we're showing sex and naked people just to do it. They're expressing to you subconsciously that like this is their escape. Because what is Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Dorothy is on her farm in Kansas, knowing that there's a better place. And if you take Lula, who has been abused and raped literally at 13, for her, this isn't just sex for sex's sake. This is her experiencing a better life than what she's known.
And also experiencing that intimate feeling with someone you trust.
Yeah. She talks about, a little bit later in the film, she talks about, I mean, I'm not going to get very graphic, but how she feels that he is communicating with her.
Yeah, they're connecting.
Right? And for someone who's been through assault and is coming out on the other side of that, and they're able to express themselves, they're able to be open with their partner about what has happened to them. That's great. That's a phenomenal, that's something that we wish for all people, right? Like, so Yeah, so I like it. You know, I think it's good. You know, this whole show, right, is about experiencing films as they are and not having to have secret knowledge to accept and enjoy things, right? But I will say, I think that there's a surface level of looking at their sexual relationship, the sex in the movie, and then there's another way of looking at it. And I don't fault people for seeing it the way that it is, because it's like, wham, bam, loud, crazy characters, Nick Cage doing Elvis, ah! And you can feel overwhelmed, but there's thought behind everything. I can say that. So back to the ending. When Lula picks up Sailor the first time, it's like, I got his tickets to this concert and I booked a hotel. Let's go. And now it's like, hey, are you hungry? This is your kid. And a lot of the just passion and like interest is kind of gone, and it's much more like day to day. And Sailor's like, yeah, this isn't working.
Also, the kid's afraid of me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be responsible and not uproot your life and add
Lula has
chaos
to
to
pull
it.
over because she's crying. Like,
Yeah,
it ain't what it was.
that's right.
you
We're
know?
not kids anymore.
So he leaves. He is surrounded by a group of tough guys. Now this is where we're like, okay, we need a new ending, right?
Yeah.
He calls them a gay slur, which is like, whoa, what's what's going on here? They knock him out, beat him up, and he sees the good witch.
Glinda.
Now for you, Michelle, this is 2 hours into this film.
I think you can use your imagination.
Comes down. What do you say? What are you experiencing?
I literally have Glinda in all caps. Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation mark. Are you kidding me? I take my cursor and I just see how much time we have, and I'm like, all right, here we go. Don't turn away from love. Thanks, Glinda.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
He rushes back.
Well, he apologizes.
Oh, yes. He stands up and says, I'm sorry for referring to you gentlemen as homosexuals.
Yes.
And thank you for teaching me a valuable lesson about life. And then screams Lula and runs away. Now, I do love this shot because as he runs down the highway, it's a 3-lane highway.
Yeah.
And so he's running through the 2 yellow lines. It looks like the yellow brick road. I thought that was pretty
No, that
great.
was good. That was good. Yeah.
Runs across all the cars and sings Love Me Tender as the credits roll. So the credits roll, and are you kidding me?
No, I shut my computer so fast.
Got it.
As soon as those credits were rolling, I'm like, great, we're off. We're in love. We're going to get married. Love Me Tender. Wonderful. Let me get on with my Sunday.
I also love
I hate this movie.
I also love the little look down through the windshield of Pace.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to him and he's like smiling. And like it's like almost a smiling
thumbs
thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love the Glinda thing.
It's not weird from all of the little elements of the Wizard of Oz. And we see the witch flying. Yeah. Lula imagines the witch flying throughout the movie.
Sailor gives Pace a lion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, we could list all of there's a ton. I mean, Marietta at one point is literally wearing the black pointed witch shoes.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yeah. So it made sense to me. It's just at this point, like, I've had enough, you know?
Yeah. There's a real simple earnestness in a lot of Lynch's movies that can be like tough to swallow in light of like the evil that he shows. Like I said way earlier in the episode, he is so good at just showing you evil stuff. Like stuff that's like, I'm freaked out. I am scared. Why is a woman screaming in my face? You know?
Yeah.
But then he's also good at being like, hey, the solution, by the way, is just love.
That's it.
And Sailor, in a very funny, he's like, but I'm a robber and a manslaughterer, and I never had any parental guidance. And Glenda's like, it doesn't matter. Don't turn your back on love. And he's like, okay.
And again, another Cage movie with the same theme.
Yep.
Are we just doing Love Month? Is this seems to be what it is? I'm like, is every
maybe.
movie the theme love?
I think a lot of things boil down to love. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about Cousin Del.
Oh, dear.
Jingle Bell.
Loves Christmas.
Jingle Del.
Crispin Glover.
The man at the bar who talks with a crazy high-pitched voice like the Munchkins.
Right. So to me, well, at this point, I'm like trying to make connections, and I'm like, oh, here's our Munchkin.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to wrap up, but my favorite scene is when they're talking about smoking from a young age, and we get all of the shots of the matches throughout the movie. The movie has a lot to do with, fire and burning and passion, and, they talk about how Sailor's mom died of lung cancer. She talks about how she believes her dad set himself on fire. So both of them have this idea of like, my parents burned themselves to death, basically. And we continue that in smoking and like choosing every day to like slowly kill ourselves with this tiny little fire. I don't know. I found a lot to say about that in parenting and being a child. Like, what does it mean to be a child? What do you carry from your parents? All of that stuff. Like, I thought that was a really good kind of underrated scene.
Yeah.
But in a movie where you have Diane Ladd, literally covering herself in red lipstick.
To represent herself as the witch.
Yeah. Diane Ladd said she performed that as, at the time in the late 80s, there was all this idea of like, if you wear the right makeup and if you wear the right mascara and if you do that, everyone will love you. And she's caught between loving Santos and loving Johnny. And she was like, I was so fed up with this idea that I wanted to be like, okay, fine. Then I'll just cover myself head to toe in it. And am I beautiful now?
Okay.
Like, am I lovable now? And that's where Diane Ladd.
I like that. But doesn't it also work as her looking like the witch?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like, stuff isn't like a 1-for-1. She doesn't cover herself in green.
Right.
That'd be too obvious.
Obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Too obvious. Do you own a piece of clothing that represents your individuality and your belief in personal freedom? How do you feel about candy necklaces?
I love candy necklaces.
Me too.
Such a throwback.
Good flavored candy.
Yeah.
But you can't really wear them as you eat them because then your neck gets
too sticky.
Mm-hmm. So this movie was made for $10 million, which I'm not going to lie, sounds way too much, but maybe Bobby Prue's fake teeth cost a lot, It's made 14.6 at the box office, 66 on Rotten Tomatoes currently, 3.9 on Letterboxd, 5.2 on Metacritic, which is quite low. This is not in the Criterion Collection yet, but like everything Lynch is, so this will be probably one day. This is not in the film registry, which you might find hard to believe. Ebert gave this 2.5 stars, which out of 4 is still pretty good. But he did not like this.
I know.
He did not like it.
I read it.
Yeah.
And I was like, my boy.
Yeah.
I got you, buddy.
And this won the top prize at Cannes that year.
That's great.
And they filmed this from August 8th to January 30th. Which again,
wow,
seems like a long time.
It's a long time.
This movie was in the top 100 films of the 90s from Rolling Stone, Complex, and IndieWire's critics poll. Maybe more astounding than any of those other facts.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our happies and crappies.
It's time for happies and crappies. Happies and crappies. It's time for happies and crappies. Happies and crappies.
My happy for this, a little happy, is the candy necklace because I just love it so much. But I would say overall is Laura Dern and just everything about her in this movie. We love Laura Dern. Laura Dern is so good at playing serious roles. And in this one, I mean, they're tormented. They're in hell, right? But she's having so much fun, and I love to see an actor that we normally see in like a serious role, like jumping on the bed and like all the cotton balls are flying everywhere and all that. I'm like, yeah, great. My crappy is definitely this movie is just so long for a very, very simple story. And I know that that's not the point. I know that I'm trying to put him in a box and he is a true artist and I shouldn't do that. But how about you?
My happy is Marietta's nails.
Mm-hmm.
My crappy is there was one particular scene of an older woman walking slowly. I think she was an older woman. And it freaked me out.
Oh.
Yes. With the
Doing
fingers.
the fingers.
Doing the finger.
Doing the spirit fingers.
That creeped me out.
Mm-hmm. He's so good at that, right?
Yeah. So that's, obviously y'all know my crappy, but
right.
This was like my creep of the episode.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Ooh, happies and creepies.
Happies and creepies.
Heepies and creepies?
Heepies and jeepies. If we cover movies with jeeps, you know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
So we asked our friends on Twitter what they thought. Sean Shank at Tyler_Burnham.
Hey, friend.
Says, I watched Wild at Heart when I was quite young, before I really knew who David Lynch was. It's always felt like one of the most romantic movies I've ever seen. Chris Isaak's Wicked Game is also the most romantic song I've ever heard. I love this movie and that song.
Wow.
I really wanted to hear from Sean because I know that this is like one of his favorite films. And I think he just saw Chris Isaak recently, actually.
Oh.
In concert. So he's putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
Paul Muad'Dib at Trig Raptor says, I watched this movie yesterday. Naturally, I'm so excited for this episode. Pretty intense, so my thoughts are with Michelle. The part where they pull over to flip/aggressively dance to metal is couples goals.
Thoughts are with Michelle. What does that mean?
Like during this trying time, his thoughts are with you.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm like, how did he know how I was going to feel about this? I guess
no.
I guess it's obvious.
No, I mean, I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
You never know.
I know.
Stellar Future Radio at SFR_OC.
Such a cool name. I like it.
Says, pure art, pure love, a masterful work. Also pure dread and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff at Beach Squid.
Beach Squid?
One of the only Lynch movies I hadn't seen, so we knocked it out this weekend. On the big screen, no less. Loved every wild moment of it. Excited to listen to the episode. And I'm very sorry, Jeff, if we've
no
rained on your parade.
They'll get it.
Can you imagine seeing this in the big screen?
Well, I thought about that many a time. I'm like,
I would die, I think.
Would my experience, or would I enjoy it more if I was with an audience? It was an event.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is almost always yes.
Always yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Movies for Days. Good friend Newman. At Movies Days with a Z. Newman says, I love this movie. For me, it's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom.
Well played.
All right, so this is people that we do know. Now we go to a segment of the show where we hear from people that we don't know. It's called Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. And the Half Star reviews, I pulled two, but one of them is just a single line, and I loved it so much I couldn't leave it behind. It simply says, Zach, your movie picking privileges have been revoked. Anyway,
Amazing.
These are reviews from letterboxd.com, which is a website and an app where you can rate, review, and log movies. We start with a half-star review, which is the lowest rated that you can give a film. We go all the way up to a 5-star review, which is the highest rated that you can give a film. And I'm going to try to do like an Elvis voice for the half star. Unless you have another request.
I love that. Do Elvis.
Bobby Peru.
You sound like a King of the Hill character.
That's what they all sound like in this
Yeah,
movie
but
to me.
Elvis doesn't sound like that.
Love me tender. Love me.
Are you going to sing the review as Elvis?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
Okay. I'm Elvis. Oh, no, that's not good, Elvis. Everybody can do an Elvis.
Right? It's like,
Can you do it?
I'm all shook up.
That's still singing, though.
I can't. Yeah, I think I can only sing Elvis.
I'm Elvis Presley.
It's like if Elvis had asthma.
Maybe I can't do an Elvis voice for this.
What?
I was so confident that I didn't practice. I just went. I was like, well,
I
it's
think
gotta be
we
Elvis,
all think
right?
we could do Elvis singing.
Right. All right. Maybe I will have to sing this one.
Oh, a first.
Okay. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun, but go God, this was trashy. The acting is question mark. A cheap porn dialogue vibes. When Nicolas Cage tells you that his snake leather jacket helps him to portray his individuality. This is a real line. You better believe him. All right, I can't sing this anymore. I can't believe how far I had to scroll down to find a review that is not 4 stars. I thought I understood why people like Lynch, but now, this movie? Now, you're just pretending. Be serious. No Wizard of Oz reference could save this. Not when I have to watch Nicolas Cage perform Elvis songs for 4 minutes straight. Willem Dafoe was doing a decent job, though. I don't know. There's a lot in there.
I just have to say, I like your singing, and then I like you going into narration.
Mm-hmm.
It was all good, Seth.
Okay.
A big fan
thanks.
of that voice. We should have that voice come back.
Just a reminder for people who don't listen to our show regularly.
Oh, yeah.
I do the accents because I'm not good at them. So trust me, that was painful for me too.
I thought Kermit was going to come out with individuality.
Here's coming. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun, but oh God, this was trashy. Zach, your movie picking privileges have been revoked.
Now I'm just picturing like Kermit and Miss Piggy sitting in the theater watching this. And Miss Piggy being like,
you tell him. You get him, sailor.
And Kermit's like,
Piggy, I don't know about this one. I'm scared.
I know this is all going to get cut because this episode is 5 hours long, but we had to do... Oh, it's so good.
All right, 3-star review says, I didn't really love this, but it often takes a rewatch for me to really take to Lynch's films. Still, Laura Dern is phenomenal, and even Nicolas Cage seems well suited to the role he's in. The links that Lynch makes between this and The Wizard of Oz play well within the dreamish quality of the movie. 5-star review says, absolutely wild, raunchy, intense, masterful. Some of the best dialogue ever put to screen. Laura Dern and Nick Cage give their everything to these performances. I love their crazy, but at its core, earnest relationship. Cheryl Lee appearing as the Good Witch inside a glowing orb is one of my favorite images to ever exist. Don't turn away from love, sailor.
Very nice.
All right, so we rate a movie as a schmovie, a movie, or a film. We rate it 1 through 5 stars and give our final thoughts. And neither of us won last week. So, Michelle, would you like to go first?
Sure.
All right, so after talking to you now, this seems insane, but I had written down at the beginning of this episode that you would rate this a 3-star film. And I now realize that that's insane.
I am rating this a 2.5 film.
Oh my God. So I was close.
You were
though.
close. You were very close. Yeah. Which in the beginning, when you were like, this might be like a weird combination, but you were onto it. Yeah. This for me, when I read Ebert's review,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was looking in a mirror.
Sure.
It's exactly how I felt, but however, I mean, obviously Ebert's seen a lot more Lynch films and he talks about how he doesn't really, there's always a disconnect and there's a chaotic element to it. And that's exactly how I felt. And like I said at the top of the show, I'm not going to reach for this movie if I'm looking for a love story or a crime drama, but I do respect it and I do respect
Sure.
the art that went into it. And I'm not recommending this. No.
Okay. All right. What did you guess for me?
Oh, for you, I wrote down 4-star film.
Ooh, also close. And by the same margin. To be honest with you, if I had rated this before digging into it, I probably would have said the same exact thing as you. Now, 2.5 for me means I like it. So it's
Right.
it's like, okay, I like this. Whatever. I'm going to bump that up to 3-star film.
Okay.
In light of all of his other work, this both makes sense, but also leaves me frustrated because I love his other stuff. And for me, this is like towards the bottom of his stuff. Now, having said that, Lynch is a genius, and we are so lucky to have had his output, and I appreciate everything. And like I said, there's that little scene where they're talking about smoking and their parents dying that I was like, oh my God, like this is the good stuff. Like, wow. So yeah, three stars. And I recommend this if you are either on the Lynch completion train or the Cage completion train or the Dern completion train.
I would say
you know?
Dern. For Cage, if you were going through Cage's filmography, I'd be like, skip this. You can get the performance in Raising Arizona. And Raising
Sure.
Arizona is so, to me, like we had so much fun with that movie.
Right.
And I would recommend that. Laura Dern, though, I think this would be a good one to throw in for her performance.
Yeah, I love her in this. Okay, so going to our pickle tally. Since no one guessed correctly, Michelle is still at 3, and I am at 5. And we'll see where we end up for the year. We're heading into second quarter here,
I know.
and our numbers are still low, but that's okay. And then on our pickle rating scale, 3, which is what I gave it, is a pickled strain bean, and 2.5, which is what Michelle gave it, is a pickled onion.
Still great choices.
I know. All right. Does this film pass the Seth Shell test? This movie must contain something tangible that is impressive, whether choreography, production design, or practical effect, and it must have a runtime that is justified by its content. For me, this is going to be like halfway. I love all the production design in this. I think it all looks great while also looking so trashy and disgusting. But like I said, little long for me. What about you?
This is a no for me.
Flat out.
It's a big, bold no in my notes.
Hey, if we're not a big, bold no for you, we'd love it if you give us a rating and a review wherever you're listening. We'd also love it if you send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about Wild at Heart, about David Lynch, candy necklaces, anything like that. You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. $5 a month gets you access to all of our additional episodes, our patron-only Discord. You get to vote on monthly and quarterly themes, commercial-free versions of all of our episodes, and you get added to Michelle's Inner Circle, where you get to decode a secret message at the end of each episode, which is pretty Lynchian of us, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay, next week.
What are we doing?
We're ending, finally. We're finally ending Cage month, and we're going out on a bang. You know, we were gifted with 5 Mondays this month.
Yes.
And so what we did was we're actually doing 2 patron voted episodes.
And this is a patron voted theme month.
Right.
It's a
So
lot of
thank you,
power the
guys.
patrons have this month.
All right. This movie is insane. We're going to be talking about Face Off from 1997, directed by John Woo. This is 139 minutes, and it is currently streaming on Paramount Plus. Have you seen this movie?
No.
Do you know anything about it?
John Travolta's in it?
Correct.
That's it.
From the title, can you guess what it's about?
I think they swap faces.
Okay. All right, there you go.
Is that true?
You'll find out.
I guess so. But hey, this would be our first Travolta film, right?
First Travolta and first John Woo.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Great director.
Cool.
All right, well, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Seth.
Hey, thank you for listening. And remember, folks, don't turn away from love. All right, till next week, thank you for listening. Have a good one.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Theme music by Jean Marie Vargas. Visit us at our website, moviefriendspodcast.com, and please subscribe and rate our show wherever you are listening. You can support Movie Friends at patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. Thanks for listening.
Incoming. Message incoming. Message to Michelle's inner circle. Remember, kids, only Michelle's inner circle can decipher this week's message. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready.
Message number 11. 83. 73. 65. 87. 66. 73. 42. 90. 56. 64. 52. 53. 49. 56. 33. 69. 83. 46. 55. 64. 68. 44. 42. 76. 56. 46. 63. 73. 59.
Michelle is counting on you. Do not let her down.